Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Bill Voorhees, your host. I'm the editorial director with Data Science Central and also chief data scientist for Data Magnum. I'd like to start off our event today by thanking Datawatch for sponsoring today's event. Datawatch is a longtime supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored having them sponsor our event today. Now, today's webinar is entitled Optimize the Data Supply Chain, and that'll be presented by Datawatch. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's event will be an hour long. We have 3 presenters who I'll introduce in just a minute. There'll be 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A following the presentation, and today's event is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. Now, I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation, because we'll be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. Well, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Mike Ferguson with Intelligent Business Strategies, Michael Rowley with Datawatch, Angos, and Ellen Wilson with Datawatch. Now, Mike is Managing Director of Intelligent Business Strategies Limited, and as an independent analyst and consultant, he specializes in business intelligence, analytics, data management, and big data. With over 35 years of IT experience, Mike's consulted for dozens of companies, spoken at events all over the world, and written numerous articles. Formerly, he was a principal and co-founder of Cod and Date Europe Limited, a chief architect at Teradata, and European Managing Director of Database Associates. Now, Michael is Director of Product Marketing at Datawatch Angos. He's an accomplished value engineering and marketing leader with 15 years of experience working with customers to drive value out of their assets. Now, Michael has been directly involved with technology projects that have enabled financial organizations to deliver value to business through better decision making, allowing them to drive new revenue opportunities in new markets. Now, Ellen is a senior marketing analyst and a member of the Datawatch product marketing team. Her experiences at Datawatch have spanned across all aspects of marketing, allowing her to understand the disparate raw data she's turned into automated, trusted, and impactful marketing dashboards that are used daily by the entire organization for decision making. Well, thank you all for being with us. We're looking forward to your presentation. Now, every organization is aiming to produce more comprehensive understanding of their customers, their business operations, and their risks through data. Most organizations are still learning best practices that allow them to leverage in-house data science resources more effectively. Now, a big piece of this puzzle is enabling better collaboration between data science teams and the line of business. A team-driven approach is necessary to help. So in today's Data Science Central webinar, led by Mike Ferguson of Intelligent Business Strategies Limited, an independent analyst and consultant who specializes in BI, analytics, data management, and big data, you'll learn what it means for an organization to be data intelligent and what it takes to get there, optimization of the data supply chain that can help create insight and foresight, how a team-driven approach reduces 2 of the most costly enterprise resources, data and effort, best practices for data science groups to easily find and understand curated and trusted data sets to feed and influence their predictive models, and finally, a brief overview and demo of Datawatch's integrated platform that combines best-in-class self-service data prep, a centralized data marketplace, predictive analytics, and data governance. So, Mike, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can begin just as soon as you're ready to go.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. So I want to talk to you about optimizing the data supply chain. And really the topics that Bill just covered is kind of what I would like to look at. I want to look at the challenge facing most organizations today, that's data complexity, what we've done about it so far, and look at how that's kind of siloed then look at the kind of real requirement that organizations are trying to get to, which is this concept of data becoming data intelligent. And how they're going to get there, and what you can do to lay a foundation for trusted data and to create an optimized data supply chain that's going to help you deliver the value that you need and accelerate the time to value through collaborative development. And then also to make data assets and analytical assets available for others to consume and use, so that they don't have to go all the way back to zero necessarily to prepare the data. They can pick stuff that's ready-made off the shelf and run with it, and hopefully deliver value much more rapidly. And then obviously how we can then reuse the assets that we create in order for folks to more rapidly deliver value in subsequent projects that may follow. So let's get started then. I mean, let's start with something pretty familiar, kind of classic data warehouse architecture, which has kind of been underpinning a lot of the decisions being made by many organizations for the best part of 25 years, I guess. Here we just see kind of classic architecture of data coming in from transaction processing systems, whether that's CRM or your entity resource planning system or your supply chain management system, analyzing data and producing dashboards and reports through BI tools and delivering that out to many devices. And that's done well for a couple of decades now. And in fact, for many organizations, they didn't just build one of those. Most of my clients, at least, have got multiple data warehouses that they've done for different parts of the organization rather than attempting to build one enormous enterprise one simply because of time constraints and business pressures. Of course, that makes it harder to access data if the data is across multiple underlying data warehouses and data marts in order to get management reports to understand perhaps sales versus inventory, to understand profitability and whatnot. But nevertheless, there's a lot more going on than just data warehousing. Today's enterprises are right in the middle of digital transformation, the digitalization of their operational and analytical business processes in order to change the way they operate and in order to produce new data that will lead to hopefully new insights that will give them some kind of competitive advantage. And that's happening today in a hybrid computing environment, both data centers on premises and one or more likely multiple clouds where those applications and systems may reside. And for any business, if you like, if I take a look at a generic kind of business here, or the front office of marketing, sales, and service, back office of finance, HR, procurement, suppliers at the back end, customers and partners at the front end, and some kind of products or services that you create and sell into the market. Digital transformation has taken hold in several ways. First, it's cloud. We've seen transaction processing systems go there. We're now seeing analytical systems going there. So a huge amount of activity happening over in a cloud computing environment as well as in the traditional data center. In addition, the emergence of mobile devices accessing enterprise applications, which has opened up a whole requirement for APIs, both from cloud applications to connect to mobile devices and to connect those cloud applications on into enterprise systems. But at the same time, we've also seen social computing really grow, and of course, enterprises are going to go there, companies are going to go there because their customers are there, so that they can interact with them. And so the whole idea of corporate Facebook pages and whatnot and services hanging off of that is pretty normal today. In addition, we've seen for some industries at least the emergence of things, whether that's industrial IoT in manufacturing, for example, or logistics or oil and gas as examples, or whether it's consumer IoT in products that you're making which have sensors inside allowing you to collect data. And in addition to that, we've also tried to increase efficiency through business-to-business process integration, joining up businesses to increase the amount of automation and reduce the cost. So a lot going on with digital transformation. One thing that's become pretty clear, however, is that the ways in which customers are interacting with us in this digital world is changing. On the right-hand side here, you see how we perhaps used to interact most of the time, which was customers would interact with an employee, perhaps through a call center or something like that, and then the employee would use an application to access data and interact with a customer. In the digital world, of course, the digital channels have taken hold, and now what's gone is the employee, so the customer is interacting directly with apps. And so the length of time it takes to engage a customer is getting shorter. And not only that, it's not a person that has to engage the customer anymore. It's an application that's going to have to engage the customer, which means that these applications are going to have to become customer intelligent pretty quickly. All of that is driving the need to know more about customers. And so not only do we want to know about transactional activity and their identity data that you would find in data warehouses and master data management systems, for example, but what we're also now wanting to know is about their behavior, maybe their online behavior, their product usage behavior if you're selling consumer-based products which have sensors inside, or even their location. Also want to know about their opinions, whether that's on review websites or inbound email coming into your enterprise. That's important, and understanding online behavior while they're on their sites is also important. But what we want to do now is kind of bring all that interaction data together with what we also already knew in the traditional warehousing environment to give us a much more complete picture of customers so that we can start to personalize and get to know them better. So what we've seen in this digital era is a flurry of new data sources emerging, not only the customer-related ones that I just spoke about, but machine-generated data, whether that's clickstream or whether it's log files or the sensors that I mentioned on industrial and consumer-based IoT devices. We're seeing human-generated data, like the opinions we said, and also external data, more and more of it coming in, open government data, for example, on data.gov or weather data or whatnot, all emerging into the enterprise that people want to analyze. And that's triggered a whole bunch of new analytical workloads. And those workloads are turning out to not just be on data warehouses anymore. They are now appearing on other systems that are optimized for specific kinds of analytics, such as Hadoop systems or in cloud storage with Spark as a service running in the cloud. Could be graph analytics running in a graph database, a no type of NoSQL database. Could also be streaming analytics running on live streaming data, such as live clickstream or live sensor data coming in off of IoT devices as examples. But the other thing that's happening with all of these new data stores is data is being ingested kind of all over the place, different types of data coming in, not just structured data anymore from our transaction systems. Now we've got an explosion of data sources emerging that we're now bringing data into the enterprise. The other challenge with that is that this data is coming into multiple underlying data stores. Those data stores could be on premises in your data centers, such as NoSQL databases or Hadoop systems. They could be in the cloud, such as just cloud storage, or even again Hadoop systems and NoSQL databases running out there. So there's a challenge in the sense that it's not all necessarily coming into one place. And that's causing problems for people trying to analyze data and find data. We don't know where it is necessarily, and governing it is even more of a challenge. They're not sure what's is the right copy of data? Is there multiple copies of data? Which sources did these come from? Is there overlapping subsets? Have I got the right version? Do we know what it all means and whatnot? All of this is a major challenge, including also the data quality. And so ultimately with this kind of deluge of data, it's kind of getting a little bit overwhelming for a lot of organizations looking at the complexity of all of these data sources, data in multiple clouds, data on premises, different types of databases as well, all becoming a little bit challenging. And I guess to kind of get it under control, we've had some attempts at that. Those attempts have been kind of siloed so far, I think. Whether it's streaming-based or whether it's Hadoop-based or data warehousing-based or master data management-based, all of these are all kind of individual silos, and the tools that we've been using to prepare data store data in these environments may differ in every one of these individual silos, which means skills are pretty thinly spread. The other challenge that's been going on with all of this data deluge is that, IT, which historically did all the data preparation for data warehouses, is now viewed often by business as a bottleneck, just can't keep pace with all of the data that they want to get access to. And so they're kind of knocking on the door and saying, hey, let us in. We want to be able to work with you in the form of self-service data preparation tools to help get at this data and make it available for analysis. Of course, the concern about self-service data preparation is well written about, and primarily around governance. And here you can see maybe traditional data warehouses that have been built perhaps by IT or emerging big data environments and whatnot, able and accessible by data science. The concern here is, of course, with self-service data prep that everyone kind of grabs their own data, does their own thing. And I guess one of the quotes I see a lot from one of my clients I really liked was that she said everyone in their organization was blindly integrating data with no attempt to share what they create, which I really liked. And I guess the concern was that not only did they have silos, but they're now potentially moving to even more silos, almost like one per person who's creating and preparing data using self-service data prep. So there's a big concern here about all of that and being able to reuse rather than reinvent all of the time. But at the same time, people are looking at data strategy to be more than just fixing the problems that we currently have. We're also trying to make it drive competitive advantage. And so, if you like, the challenge that I've just described here is, or the requirement, if you like, is how do you on the one hand, design in data governance, and on the other hand, shorten the time to value, improve the agility, and allow people to get ahead, not just IT doing it, but business and IT collaborating together to deliver value in a shorter amount of time, given that the data sources are rapidly increasing. And also that data is increasingly becoming more and more distributed across multiple clouds and on-premises systems. So my question is then, well, why not both? Why can't we do both? It shouldn't necessarily be one versus the other, as I'm showing it here. So I think the requirement is effectively to become data intelligent. It's the way to conquer complexity, govern the data, and at the same time shorten the time to value. And there's a kind of series of steps that need to get done to make that possible. One is to come up with common terms so that people understand whatever data you want to share is commonly understood. We know what it means, and that's documented. Second is to come up with a common fabric or data management platform that's allowing us to ingest and discover and prepare and analyze and govern the data. But that's a technology requirement. It's much more. We need much more than technology. We also need to organize ourselves to succeed, and that really means looking at data as an asset, and perhaps with the appointment of a chief data officer and a program office, and aligning with business strategy, can we then look at, well, what kinds of data do we need to produce? And then divide up our kind of resources into information producers and information consumers. And then form projects to go and be able to produce those data and analytical assets that are directly aligned with strategy. So if we're trying to improve customer engagement, then clearly we want to know about what data and analytical assets we're going to produce to do that. Similarly, if you want to reduce fraud, again, what data and analytical assets do we need to produce fraud? So organization and alignment with strategies is very, very key. At the same time, also, we kind of want to be able to find a common way to curate data rather than create thousands of silos, everyone doing their own thing. And so looking at a kind of data lake with a kind of way to curate this so that we can produce ready-to-use or ready-made data products and analytical products that can be made available for others to consume and use. So we would like to do that, if you like, in a common supply chain where both business and IT are working together. It's no longer the case that IT can do all of this on their own. So collaboration is very, very important. But then to be able to publish these kind of ready-made data assets and analytical assets in a data marketplace, an enterprise marketplace, so that people within the enterprise can go there, find out what's available, if you like, shop for data, shop for analytics, shop for recommendations, shop for decisions, and be able to leverage that and quickly get off the mark with their project and hopefully deliver it much more quickly than going all the way back to zero every time. And then, of course, we want to be able to simplify access to any of these assets that they produce, no matter which location those happen to be. So as I already looking at some of those steps, we talked about the kind of common vocabulary to understand the data meaning. That's very, very important, and I see it as foundational, because we want to provide data products in different forms, whether that's into a data model or in XML form or JSON form or whatever. We want it to be commonly understood no matter what way we deliver it. Not only that, but I think we're now at the point where the reason this is important is that data and analytics, for the first time in my career, has really moved to the center of the enterprise, rather than having operational systems on one side and analytical on another. We now moved the world of data and analytics to the middle, and every part of the enterprise wants to get their hands on it. And so making what we deliver there shareable and commonly understood and trusted is critical to getting maximum value and reuse across all parts of the business. And looking back at the silos that I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we want to do here, I think, is to rationalize this kind of environment and say, is there any way to simplify that? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. I mentioned one of the key components here is to come up with a common technology platform that would allow collaborative team development to deliver these high-value data and analytical assets. And if you look at the screen carefully, I kind of think that what we can do then is take a sort of single data management platform which consists of both IT and self-service-based tooling to allow us to manage data across multiple data stores, irrespective of whether those are in a data center or across multiple clouds or a combination of both. And so a kind of logical data lake made up of multiple data stores is kind of what we're looking at, rather than some centralized single location where you can put all data, which for most of my very large clients is just not practical. We also need a catalog to understand what data is available and what trusted ready-made data assets we can pick up and reuse. So if you feel like, the logical data lake is effectively a data lake that could be multiple data stores, but you can manage it as if it was a single system. And so in that sense, the enterprise data management platform and analytical services that can be invoked from within it is very, very key to working across multiple data stores, whether they're cloud-based or not. We want connectivity to all of these different data stores, and we want a catalog to be able to discover what's in there and to be able to publish trusted data and analytical assets that we produce. We have to then, automatically discover and catalog that, whether it's operational systems, analytical systems, or increasingly now edge-based systems in the form of IoT devices. And then we have to organize ourselves to succeed. If you want to be data-driven, I think you have to realize that we have to organize to become data-driven. For me, this is half the battle, and recognizing that we have information producers and information consumers. In the past, information producers were IT only. I think today, information producers are a combination of IT and business professionals that are able to produce data and analytical assets that can be published in a catalog or a marketplace that people can then shop for data, so the information consumers can find ready-made capabilities there. They can trust the data, understand what it means, and understand where it came from. So I think on the production side, organizing to succeed means we have to formulate projects that will produce these data and analytical assets, and those projects, we want them to be aligned with our business strategies. So if we want to reduce risk or optimize operations or improve customer engagement, then the question is which projects, which data assets, which analytical assets are we going to produce that are going to do that? The second thing we want to be able to do is to bring together those business and IT professionals into those projects and then focus those projects on those particular assets so that we connect to the relevant data sources that we need to, whether they're cloud-based or on-premises based, build out the data assets and the analytical assets that we need to build, and facilitate collaboration during that production process. And effectively what we would like is, rather than every project doing their own thing with their own technology, it would be kind of nice if we could get a common platform and a supply chain going where each project moves through the supply chain to deliver specific assets that are published in a marketplace that we can then allow employees within the enterprise to come to and shop for data and analytical assets that are ready made. So of course we can do this kind of with either a common platform which can help us handle each of these projects with all of the steps taken care of by a common team-based collaborative platform, or alternatively you could have best of breed where pieces of this are put together from different vendors. Of course, clearly having a common platform would be more integrated, more likely to be more productive through metadata sharing and whatnot across the entire platform. But it could be that there are some gaps and maybe you need to plug those in some of those areas with best of breed tools. The key point I'm making, however, is it's not just about organizing ourselves, putting it into projects, delivering those projects in a common supply chain. The objective here is to create ready-made data assets. When you go into a canteen like I'm showing you here, and you want chicken for lunch, you don't get a raw chicken and some ingredients and someone say to you, you figure it out. What we want is ready-made. We want to be able to just pick that up and consume it and go. So in a way, what we're trying to say here is we want to produce these assets so that we're trying to speed up the ability to go the last mile. We're not trying to go the last mile, but we want to make it available to consumers who can pick that up and go and deliver value from it and reuse those assets again and again, rather than go all the way back to creating them separately on every individual project. And of course, an example of a platform that could do this is Datawatch Swarm, which of course Michael and Ellen will cover following me. But this is an example of how both data and analytical components can be put together in pipelines, and that these pipelines can be built collaboratively between business and IT to deliver the value you need. So ultimately, we could potentially deliver the value or deliver these assets in a number of places. We have our logical data lake. We have our kind of common fabric, if you like. But we could potentially deliver these assets in a number of different data stores. And so if we do that, we still want to be able to simplify access to the assets that we create if we want to combine them quickly. And rather than always expect the business user to have to join all of these things themselves, we could also potentially make that even easier by creating a logical data warehouse or data virtualization, if you like, to make those components look integrated and then simplify access and publish all of that within a catalog and make it real easy to pick up and go. So effectively what we're saying here, therefore, is the big challenge for most enterprises now is unifying data from an increasing number of data sources that are in multiple places. We want to be able to have a common way to curate that data. We don't want it to be IT anymore. We want it to be collaborative, and for people to be able to pick up and reuse what others have already invented so that we can create those trusted assets more rapidly. We publish them into a marketplace, which is effectively almost like a hub. We're publishing into it, other people are subscribing to take from it. But rather than expecting everybody to take copies of the data we put into the marketplace, we may do that and push some of that into data warehouses and whatnot. But we may also make virtual views of that data available so that we don't need to necessarily create copies of the data in order for people to leverage it and go deliver value with it. But the key point being here is that we're trying to come up with a much more rapid way of delivering ready-made data assets that is just going to accelerate the time to value, despite the fact that the complexity of data is getting worse with more and more data sources and more data stores, both inside and outside the firewall. So to conclude then, I think what's very clear to me is that digitalization has had a dramatic impact on organizations. We all want to do it, we are doing it, but a side effect of it is it's introducing greater complexity in the form of challenges with data. And up until now, we've had different siloed approaches to dealing with this, but what we're sort of saying is rather than everybody going back and going to raw data every time, and using different tools and spreading skills thinly across all of those silos, could we not rationalize that, come up with a common approach to doing this with a common supply chain, and combine data processing and analytical processing in pipelines so that we can deliver ready-made data and analytical assets that can be published in a data marketplace, that are commonly understood, and governance is baked into the curation process. And then people can go there and shop for data. We can simplify access to combining those data and analytical assets if necessary, and hopefully then accelerate the time to value from consumers coming in and picking that up and using it for competitive advantage or to improve efficiency or reduce risk and whatever else is required within the enterprise. So I hope that gives you a feel for what I think is potentially possible here. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much and pass over to Michael, I think it is.
Actually, it's Ellen.
I beg your pardon, Ellen, I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Thanks, Mike. And hello, everyone. My name is Ellen Wilson, and I am with my colleague Mike Rowley from Datawatch. And we're here today to talk to you about how Datawatch's solutions can help with optimizing the data supply chain for data scientists. So to start, what we here at Datawatch are trying to accomplish is moving organizations and teams along this data and analytics maturity curve, from just hindsight understandings to insight and foresight. But even just mastering hindsight metrics can be difficult and requires an effective data supply chain strategy because hindsight isn't always 20/20, and even historical data isn't always easy to access, clean, or analyze. So really all analytics need to start with trusted, clean, and complete data sets. And only with that foundation can you begin to advance your data strategy beyond descriptive hindsight analytics to predictive or prescriptive analytics. And of course, developing predictive and prescriptive analytics requires even more time, labor, and analytical expertise than just looking back on past performance. So a big piece of this puzzle that Datawatch really helps with is enabling better collaboration between data science teams and the line of business. And we help organizations develop a team-driven, cross-functional approach to analytics, bringing together the domain experts and the data scientists to providing them basically a central platform to access data and collaborate on analytics together. And hopefully this ultimately deduplicates effort, allowing people to access accurate data from a central platform and develop more trust in the final outcomes. Another way to think of this is looking at this data strategy grid, which is derived from a 2017 Harvard Business Review article. And that article introduces this concept of balancing offensive and defensive analytics to optimize business performance. And to clarify, defensive analytics are more of the kind of plumbing aspects of data management for mitigating risk or looking back on business performance. So that's more the hindsight view that we were just mentioning. Whereas offensive analytics, on the other hand, can be more strategic and focused on forward-looking decision making. So that's definitely more predictive and prescriptive. And this HBR article also notes that an effective data strategy can only be realized by striking the best balance between defensive and offensive analytics. So, of course, that best balance can vary depending on industry or role or business goals, but it doesn't necessarily translate into a 50-50 split. But all organizations have analytics that are both defensive and offensive, and both are important to a complete holistic data strategy. So at Datawatch, we help organizations drive everyone up and to the right to be able to spend their time working with data on the important strategic metrics versus the hindsight past performance metrics that hopefully can be automated in some fashion. And we do this by centralizing data sources and all data work in a central platform, a data marketplace, allowing the business to more easily collaborate and therefore hopefully more effectively use the data science resources that they have within their business to make all business, especially critical business decisions based on trusted analytics, using the domain experts' knowledge and also the data science expertise. So what is a data marketplace? It's a central platform for secure and governed data sourced by the domain experts that know the data sources the best, and bringing together both the business analysts, the data scientists, and those data consumers. So it increases productivity, optimizing that data supply chain so everyone spends less time searching for trusted data and can spend more time actually working with the data and analyzing it. A data marketplace can also include machine learning to drive efficiency and the reuse of predictive models and curated data, and socialization features to, again, drive that reuse of existing models that were created by people that know the data the best. So with all that in mind, this is the full kind of Datawatch product suite. And we provide overall that layer between the data sources, such as your data warehouse, your big data sources, or database systems that may currently be siloed in different lines of business, and bringing that together with the end users and the stakeholders that want the final outputs of those database systems. So we offer that end-to-end solution for accessing and preparing data, automating and governing it, performing predictive analytics, and visualizing the results as well. So been around for over 30 years, and we've historically been known for providing these data intelligence solutions with incredible ease of use, but also powerful and advanced functionality. So everyone, whether you're a business analyst or a data scientist, can hopefully intelligently tap into more data to drive faster analytical insight across the organization. And so today, what we're going to be showing you in a moment in a quick demonstration is how we enable kind of data science for everyone and optimizing that data supply chain through team-driven analytics in our solution Swarm and Knowledge Studio. And in this demo, in this demonstration, we're going to walk you through how a business analyst, myself in this case, and my colleague Mike Rowley is going to be playing the role of a data scientist, and how we can work together in this central platform to create a predictive model that will optimize sales follow-up using historical sales opportunity data to hopefully drive the creation of new revenue. And so now we'll switch over to the demo and jump right into that. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be the business analyst, the marketing business analyst that's familiar with the original data set that we're going to be using in this situation. And I'm focused on kind of creating the insight in the form of reporting and visualization. And I have the domain knowledge that Mike, as a data scientist, may not. But Mike, he's a trained statistician and is comfortable with creating scripts for predictive modeling. So together, we're going to do that. We're going to create that predictive model, but my task is to provide Mike with a cleaned report that he can use to build a predictive model. And that starts here in the Swarm library, which is the central location for collaborating on new projects like we're showing you here today. And it's where I can have all my data sources, whether they're structured or unstructured or built from reports or connections to a database. And Swarm can access data from PDFs and web pages as well. So no matter what data you're working with, we can work with it. Swarm has folders with permission-based access as well, so based on the person's role or expertise. And it also has workspaces, which capture all the data transformation steps made to automate reporting. And so I've centralized all the data sources here in this folder. And as you can see, some of the data sets I added to Swarm myself, and some were created by others in my organization. But one thing all four of these data sets have in common is that they're all curated, meaning that they have been reviewed and approved for use by IT. So I'm choosing to only use curated data sets to build this final report for Mike to ensure the highest level of data quality and trust in the results of the final predictive model. So in this workspace, you see those same 4 reports, and I've blended them together to create this report, which Mike is going to use to build the predictive model in Knowledge Studio. And I've worked very closely with Mike to clean and blend and transform data sets, as you can see by these notifications of all the work we've been doing together. And in the comment section, you can also see my collaboration with others in the organization while building this report. So people can get an understanding of why I made changes. And here in the change history, you can get an understanding of how I made changes, all the specific steps I made to manipulate those data sets. So you get a very holistic view of all the work people are doing on data throughout your organization, hopefully a better understanding of that data supply chain. And making data changes and data prep cleaning steps, you just have to, everything's a click away at column level and at the table level. So you're able to group and sort and deduplicate data all very quickly with the click of a button here. So very easy for both, hopefully, business analysts and data scientists. And this flow view gives an overview, a holistic overview of every join and filter and preparation step I made along the way to build that final report. And this flow view can be used to explain my work to others and used for, understanding the full data supply chain, data lineage, in a way that hopefully is understood by everyone instantly, no matter their analytical background, because it's a very visual view. And from here, we can share this report out with Mike and the data science team and begin to build the predictive model and have this total report and workspace curated by IT and schedule the report to update automatically. So our predictive model will always use the latest data. And so with that, I'm going to switch over to Mike, and he's going to show you Knowledge Studio.
Great. Thanks, Ellen, and welcome, everyone. So this is the Knowledge Studio interface. And if you're not familiar with what Knowledge Studio is, it's a leading predictive analytics and machine learning platform. And it's used by data scientists and citizen data scientists or business analysts alike. And really, it's designed for data science teams who wish to use advanced forecasting and optimization algorithms to predict outcomes with precision, efficiency, and agility. And its ability to effectively mine data at the right time leads to faster time to insight. And really, our design approach removes the complexity inherent to predictive analytics and data science projects. So we offer interactive, flexible, open, and intuitive workflows which allow for predictive models to be built with a fair amount of efficiency. And for those with less experience in creating predictive models, we offer drag and drop features embedded into our wizard that are common with data science modeling. And for those who have a lot of experience with programming algorithms and creating models, Knowledge Studio supports common languages such as R, Python, PMML, and advanced techniques such as scorecard building and optimization. And really, there's a wide range of models that can be leveraged here, from our patented decision tree technology, which we'll see in a moment, to, of course, regression such as linear logistic, constrained logistic, PLS, models such as boosting, bagging, random forest, cluster analysis, and many more, including machine learning models. And if we look at the interface a little bit more, you can see that the nodes are organized in palettes that are grouped by related functionality. The connect node defines all connections to and from data sources. Profiling nodes are found in the profiling palette. And nodes for data transformations, including data set and record level transformations, are found in the manipulate palette. Models can be created and evaluated, use the appropriate nodes from the model and evaluate palettes. And finally, the action palette contains nodes that can be used to deploy model code. And as Ellen mentioned, Knowledge Studio is integrated with Swarm so that the time it takes to complete data preparation steps and build predictive models in our interface is much more efficient than the time it takes to when using other tools. So in this example here, we've created the workflow in advance and simply have dragged the appropriate nodes from the palettes and connected them together. And we'll go through this in greater detail. As you can see, I'm able to browse my library for the data set Ellen has put there for me. And although the two of us have collaborated on this project, and I understand what this data set is, I can preview the data to confirm the information that I'm working with. So you can see here details such as the opportunity ID, the deal size, the account size, and I can decide to include or remove some of these variables. In this case, I'll leave everything as is. The next node in the Knowledge Studio workflow is the dataset node, which was created as the data was imported from Swarm. And I can review this data set further using pie charts and histograms, and if need be, I can edit the ranges of my groupings to have an even more granular view of the data. Now, building a decision tree is fairly straightforward. From the model palette, I dragged the decision tree node to the canvas and connected it with the data set. And as I work through this wizard here, I can select the dependent variable that I wish to measure against. And otherwise, I can keep all of the other default settings as is. And now with this decision tree built, I can begin to explore the insight found within the data set. So in this Knowledge Studio decision tree, we are measuring against a dependent variable called the opportunity outcome. We are measuring the relationship between other variables within the data against this dependent variable, and we are looking for indicators of predictive behavior in the tree to help us better understand what helps close a deal and what variables indicate which opportunities to focus on. So what we're really looking for here are larger slices of blue, as this color represents the won opportunities, and the green slices indicate lost opportunities. So the nodes that have more blue are the ones that are telling me a story about past won opportunities, what has influenced them to become opportunities that were successful. And this information can help show how we can interact with new opportunities. So once the predictive model is complete in Knowledge Studio, I just export the decision tree back to Swarm for additional work. And in this case here, I'm adding a model description and a win probability scoring to the exported model, which I will then export into Swarm so that Ellen can further work on it. So back to you, Ellen.
Thanks. So now back in Swarm, I'm able to use that decision tree, and with this predictive scoring transformation step, apply that predictive model that Mike just showed building to a list of open opportunities from our marketing CRM system. And this creates a new table with a win probability column associated to every opportunity. So from here, I can sort opportunities, so the ones that are most likely to win for sales are at the top. And this table is basically the final output of the demonstration, so I can now export this report and share it with the marketing and sales groups through Swarm, and the sales team can use this information to prioritize opportunities to follow up on immediately and more aggressively, and it can be used by the marketing team to develop marketing tactics to target leads that are most likely to result in high probability opportunities. So I can schedule this report once I'm done making some cleaning changes to it to update automatically, so sales and marketing is always accessing current information to make their decision making based on that curated and trusted reports that we blended together in Swarm and then shared with Mike, the data scientist, for predictive modeling in Knowledge Studio. And so just a recap then on Datawatch, we're a data intelligence solution provider helping individuals and organizations master all data, no matter the origin or format or narrative, resulting in faster time to insight. So Datawatch solutions are architected to drive the use of more data enterprise-wide, whether they're structured or multi-structured data sources, foster more trust through governance and control and centralization of data, and incorporate more minds into analytics and reporting projects with built-in collaboration features. And we have some additional resources for you that we will be following up with you after the webinar, and they're also located on datawatch.com if you'd like to access them yourselves. But if you've enjoyed today's presentation, hopefully these resources will interest you as well. So the first is by Mike Ferguson, the first speaker on this webinar today, where he digs into some of the topics we covered today, such as becoming more data intelligent. We also have a CDO's Guide to Practical Data Intelligence and a 2018 State of Data Intelligence study. We have a deep dive into what is a data marketplace in our ebook, Data Marketplace Defined. And if you'd like some more information specifically about Datawatch solutions, we have the resources on our website for that about both Swarm and Knowledge Studio. And so I'd like to thank you all for your time and attention today. And with that, I'll pass us back over to Bill for the Q&A.
Well, Mike, Michael, Ellen, hey, thank you for that excellent presentation. And we'll get started with today's Q&A session. I want to thank the audience for their participation. Had a lot of questions that have come in, and we'll do our best to get through all of them in the time remaining. And during this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen with contact information for our speakers if you'd like to contact them following today's webinar. So let's get started. Michael, you mentioned there was something unique about the decision trees that were in your platform. Can you tell us what type of algorithms are used in those decision trees?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually a very common question that we get. I wasn't showing it as I built out the wizard, but by default, we use a C5 algorithm, but you have the ability to select a number of different algorithms that are essentially familiar or, equivalent or similar to JCart or C5, as I mentioned earlier.
Oh, terrific. Hey, thank you so much. Hey, Mike, early in your presentation, you introduced the concepts of logical data warehouse and logical data lakes as distinct, I guess, from individual data warehouses and data lakes. And the audience was interested to know exactly what the difference, exactly what you meant by a logical data warehouse or a logical data lake. That language just wasn't familiar to them.
Okay, well, let's see. So logical data warehouse is really making use of data virtualization software to simplify access to multiple data stores. So if we produce data and analytical assets that are in multiple locations, we can potentially bring those together and provide virtual views of it and access that. So it also means allows me to take trusted data that's already produced and available in my data warehouse, trusted data that's produced as a result of processing and analyzing it in a big data environment like Hadoop or on cloud storage with Spark as a service, or using tooling like Datawatch Analyse to be able to analyze the data. We would then be able to bring those, if you like, trusted data assets together into virtual views and simplify access rather than expect a BI tool user to connect to each of them separately and then join it. So the other one was logical data lake. Of course, there are centralized data lake, which would be a single data store where you would bring your data to so that you could then prepare it and analyze it. That, of course, is dependent on the fact that you can bring all your data to one physical centralized data store, which is just not the case for several of my large clients. I have a couple of clients that operate in many different countries, and expecting them to bring everything to one physical location is not always practical. So a logical data lake is really where there are multiple data stores where data is being ingested into, and that you want to then use to prepare data and curate it to create these trusted data assets. And so the logical data lake is where you can use a common platform to connect to these data sources and still curate the data and deliver it, despite the fact that the data is not physically located in a single centralized data store, whether that's cloud storage or Hadoop. So in that sense, effectively, Datawatch Swarm is an example of a collaborative platform that would give you that kind of capability. So effectively, a logical data lake allows you to have a data lake that consists of multiple data stores, but manage it as if it was centralized.
Well, Mike, thanks for that explanation. And kind of as an extension to that, can you speak to the issue of what's the difference between a data marketplace and a data catalog?
Well, I think a data catalog is effectively a technology that can be used to create a data marketplace. And either the catalog is separate or more likely integrated as part of the data platform, such as the example that Datawatch just showed on Swarm. So effectively, it's a catalog is a technology by which you can create a data marketplace.
Well, thanks for that explanation. Hey, Ellen, the audience was interested in the slide that you had that talked about the offensive and defensive data strategy grid and where they could go to find out more about that.
Well, definitely on our website, datawatch.com, and we actually have a resource titled What's a data strategy, and that really goes into that data strategy grid and the offensive and defensive analytics more in that HBR article that I mentioned as well. So I would definitely point you in that direction, and we can include it in follow-up as well.
Okay, Ellen, thanks for that. Michael, back to you on the abilities of the data science portion of your platform. How do we get the models into production? Can you export in R or Python, or is there even a more direct method of exporting?
Well, yeah. So within the Knowledge Studio interface in the action panel that I briefly showed, we have nodes that allow you to convert, let's say, for example, a decision tree, but it doesn't have to be a decision tree only. It can be others. You can essentially connect your decision tree to the R node export or the Python node export and convert the tree into that type of code so that you can use for whatever other purposes you want. So as I said earlier, we support the importing of multiple sources of data, including script written in Python and R. You can import from R and export into Python and so forth. So we really allow you the flexibility to do what you want with the models, whether you want to keep them within the Knowledge Studio interface or if you want to export it into other code for your other purposes.
Well, that's a great explanation, and thank you. Now, that's about getting models into production, but what about sharing models with line of business managers and business analysts? What does the platform allow you to do to feed those models back to the non-data scientist users?
Right. So you can obviously go back into Swarm and use the information that's shared there. We also integrate with other tools. If you need to have a visual view, a greater visual view, we can export our models into things like Tableau or Click. Certainly, we offer a lot of visual graphics within the Knowledge Studio interface that you can export into simply PowerPoint or Word presentations, or embed our models into third-party applications that the business might be using as well. So really, depending on your need, will help us better understand how to answer your question.
Okay, that makes sense. Hey, Mike, the audience was interested to hear from you, since you've had a lot of experience in this area, the types of hurdles that most organizations encounter when they're looking to become data intelligent, as you said.
Yeah, I think one of the key hurdles is getting business bought into this whole approach. I mean, clearly handing out self-service data prep tools to everybody gives them potentially more power, but what it has a side effect of is creating lots and lots of silos and nobody sharing anything, and therefore effectively can inadvertently breed inconsistency throughout, and then trust disappears and things start to deteriorate. But I do think, obviously, having gone from a sort of centralized IT environment in the past towards a much more decentralized kind of shadow IT environments, where business are doing a lot of things autonomously these days, what we're trying to find here with this rethink is sort of middle ground, whereby there's a way to accelerate the different business units in order to deliver value more rapidly by giving them ready-made capabilities and using a platform like Swarm to do it. So I think one of the key aspects here is getting business on board, and I think organizationally there's a number of things that we can do to help with that. I think that's one of the reasons why we are seeing chief data officers being appointed who have effectively accountability for making that happen. And part of their remit effectively is to prioritize, well, first of all, define and prioritize the data and analytical assets that need to be produced and align those with the corporate business goals in order to make sure that what's being produced is being produced for a specific business purpose that's going to drive some benefit. And then I think, having kind of got that organizational element on board, then, can we then organize this into this supply chain of producers and consumers and make it project-based? I think in the past we've kind of gone from bottom up. I think what we're now seeing is a bit of top-down, a business-oriented focus on it with some organizational capabilities that's needed in order to get the wheels moving on something like this. But I also think another challenge is convincing business that this is not a temporary thing. I mean, an information supply chain within the enterprise, I think, is a permanent thing now that data analytics has moved to the center of the enterprise. And I think what I am seeing is a real eagerness at the executive C-suite level to want to do this, and almost eagerness at the bottom level to some extent. The challenge is the middle management and getting them on board. But I think there are definitely ways to do it by demonstrating and making organizational changes as well as bringing together the right technology components and methodologies to make it happen.
Mike, thank you for that insight. Hey, Ellen, Michael, we're about out of time, but the audience is asking if there are trial versions or how can they test out the various applications that you have available.
So for Swarm, we can request a demo and set up a demo and show you the platform yourself, and I'll pass it over to Mike for Now's studio there.
Well, that would be exactly the same answer.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, hey, Mike, Michael, Ellen, hey, thank you for some great answers to some very good questions. And for those of you that asked questions today that weren't answered, we'll be sending all the unanswered questions to Mike, Michael, and Ellen and the Datawatch team so they can follow up with you after today's webinar. Now, I have just a few quick announcements. If you'd please mark your calendars for February 12th, that's our next DSC webinar, and that will be Creating Business Applications with R and Python. Also, remember that today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing later today. You can find that on the home page of Data Science Central in the Webinar tab, located at the top of the page. And all of our past webinars are also available in the same location. If you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at those, I encourage you to do so. They provide some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our data science community. Well, that brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance, thoughtful questions. A special thanks again to Datawatch for their sponsorship, and particularly our speakers today, Mike Ferguson, Michael Rowley, and Ellen Wilson, for their insight into today's topic. So this is Bill Voorhees. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event. Look forward to seeing you all again on February 12th. Have a great day.